Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you what we did with the head on the Westerbeke. And here we've got a parallel sitting on the top of the head, and we've got a feeler gauge, and what we're doing is looking to see if the feeler gauge can fit under this parallel. And it's really to look for flatness. And now the next thing we're doing is we're checking the valves. So you can see the intake and exhaust valves. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some diesel fuel in them. We've leveled the whole thing. And we're going to see if that diesel fuel seeps past. And if it seeps past, we're going to send this head out and have them re-lap the... Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to check the head for flatness. And what we've got is this ground parallel. And just laid it across the entire head. And then we're going to take a feeler gauge here, and I'm going to take the smallest feeler gauge I've got and check it. But first I'm going to position the camera to do this. Let's see. Okay, so here we've got the smallest feeler gauge. This one is 1.5 thousandths. And there's no place that I can get this underneath this parallel. And so what I've done is I'll lift the parallel up, I'll slide it underneath it, and then I'll see, does the parallel rock? And it sure does. So I know it's not me trying to slide it underneath or the edge of the parallel. It is in fact very flat. So I've repeated this in a few different places. There, and then over here in the middle. And let's see if we can zoom down in. I've got to move there we go. And nothing. I cannot get the feeler gauge anywhere underneath this parallel that's on the top of the head with the head upside down. So I'd say this head is pretty flat. Bring it out a little bit more. We're going to rotate it around. Try it in the other direction. So set it gently here. And we'll come at it from the side. Nothing. Can't get it underneath anywhere on this cylinder. And so I'm going to lift it up, slide it underneath, and then see. Yep, it teeter-totters on it. So we know we're at least... Oh, we're at 1.5 thousandths or better, assuming that's the flatness of the bar. And so that should be pretty good. We'll do the next cylinder now. Bring this over here to the number 2 cylinder. Fits flat. And here I can get it underneath it for a little bit right in the dead center. So I'm going to have to think about this. Is it being hit by something on the edge? It may have been. So I'm going to try it again here. Yeah, we can get it underneath here. Okay, so we're going to go across this one right here with another feeler gauge. This one is good for 1,000, and I cannot get this underneath anywhere on this cylinder. So it is at least 1,000th or better across the center cylinder. There's a little bit of machining that was done here, and I think that actually causes it to be up a little bit right here. There's like a little burr from that machining, and so I decided to set the parallel so it wasn't lined up with that machining, and then it's perfect. Just showing me the overall head warpage, if any. And I'm going to do the same thing here on the number 3. I've got that set up, and we're going at it again with this number 1,000th feeler gauge. Can't get it underneath, so we'll lift it. Yep, it teeter-totters a little bit there, so I'm pretty sure that this is in fact better than 1,000th on flatness overall. And that was a burr from the old head gasket. Okay, so what we're doing here is we've got the engine block fairly level on the bench, and what we've done is poured some diesel fuel right on top of the valves, the exhaust valves and the intake valves from this side. So it's all upside down, and what we're looking for is we're looking to see if these valves are going to leak. And the idea is that if we let this sit here for a while, we should be able to tell if that diesel fuel disappears. It should just sit in those little dishes around the edge of the valves, and hopefully it doesn't go anywhere. And if it stays there, and it looks like it is, then we're going to say the valves are in good shape. Okay, so there's the head, and what we're going to do here is we're getting it all cleaned up. We used this Scotch-Brite, we used a razor blade right here, and we've gotten all the crap from the old O-ring right off of here. Not O-ring, but head gasket. So we got to get the old crap off of here. This is the point on the head gasket that really matters, right along here, right along here, as that's where the high pressure is. So if it's going to fail, it'll fail out along one of these, and so that's where it matters.
Also, inspect between your valves.
Yep.
For cracks between the valves, in between here for water jackets and cylinders, but mostly in between the valves. That's where you get cracks.
It looks pretty clean. So we're going to do one last thing with this before we put it on the boat, and that's we're going to take the shop vac and just make sure there's nothing down in any of those holes that's going to possibly contaminate it, and we'll put it back together. Okay, so there's the head. It's all cleaned up. We used some Scotch-Brite. We used a razor blade. We used some of this brake parts cleaner. Polished it up. Got rid of all of the crud from the old head gasket that was left. And most importantly, right here where the high pressure is at the top of the cylinders is the main thing. Make sure that's completely cleaned. Then we're going to check all these valves right in here. They're all good. We've checked them ahead of time, but what we're going to do right now is we're just going to use a shop vac and make sure that this is in fact perfectly clean, so nothing's in it when we flip it over and put it back on the engine. Okay, there's a head gasket. We've set it up on top of the engine, and it's a dry fit, and this has been all cleaned. Same thing, we use a Scotch-Brite, make sure it's all perfectly ready. And we're going to bring the shop vac over and just touch all the holes, make sure nothing's falling in. Last check on the cylinders, make sure nothing's falling in. And then we're going to pop this head back up on top. Before we do that, we got to go find the head.
So we're going to find our alignment box. Yeah.
We're going to start in the middle. So we're actually going to start out here.
Yeah.
Do we have that set up right? Do we have four? Oh, we got this set up. This picture set up the right direction, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they actually want us to start over here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here. That's number one.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, and 3. So we're going to pull this down first, which is the smaller bolts.
What you're going to do?
And we're going to bring them in a smaller amount. Probably bring them into 20 foot-pounds to start, which is about a third of the setting.
What meat? Like you have different sizes, right? Are you gonna check? I haven't set the torque yet. So now you have all these, right? So you got 1, 2, and 3, and you're gonna split the difference.
So we're gonna go to 20. What is it? 10? No, these are 15. So we'll go to 7.
Yeah, 7. So what I would do in this instance, right?
5 is there. We're at 7.
Yep.
do the rest. Need the other bolt, which is the M10.
4, 5.
It's over there somewhere.
It's number 4.
Okay, this one's right up here, right by your hand.
Yep. Okay.
So 4, we're in the middle.
Yep. And that's a crisscross. Basically, spiral out. And 5.
Here?
Yep. And here. 6.
Or 8. It's over here.
9 opposite. 9 opposite. 9.
9, this one. All right.
Yep. And 10.
And
We did them all at 7.
Yeah. So we're gonna move it up to what do we got to go to here?
So we're gonna go.
Say 15.
Well, the thing is.
The M8s are 15.
Yeah.
But the whole thing was done light, so we got to bring them all up.
So you're gonna do the next round.
These big ones to a number like 20.
Yeah.
Which is about a third of that value right there. So we start here. Which one? 4 is this one,
Yep.
right?
Yep. 4 and then 5.
4.
6.
6. 7. 8, 9, 10. Okay, now
I'd max these out right here.
the edge ones.
Yeah,
What
because
is
the
it?
next
15 point. Well, those are the MX. So we're gonna bring this back down to 15.
Yeah, 15.9, 16 foot-pounds. Maybe this one.
Okay. I'm gonna switch it. Start in the middle. On it. Doesn't feel like much at all.
No.
60. So which is number 1 right here?
Yep. Well, number 4.
4.
Yep. I gotta hold it.
Click that.
60 is quite a bit. It is. Sun's coming out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And the last one right there.
Then we're done with that.
Good enough.
Let's throw the rack on.
Back on.
Yep.
Bounce not
just
a valve cover. It's a valve cover with a...
This right here is your coolant drain.
Yep. So we didn't open that.
No, we sucked it through there.
Okay, let's see. Where did I put the new valve cover? Oh, right over there.
Right over there.
It's not new, but it's...
Better than new.
Okay. You see that spray? Well, this is just going to go in anyways temporarily. This is going to stay on.
Yeah, we'll vacuum it and clean it out.
Can we put any oil up in there?
Hmm?
Put any oil up in there?
As far as...
Just to make sure that it's not going anywhere. How's that feel?
Had no compression there the last time.
Is that good? That's great. You can't hold your finger on it.
No. Nope. Looks good. We'll do a leak down, but you definitely have good compression. Decent, anyway.
Good. So here we go. We'll just set this right up on where. How's that feel?
Had no compression there the last time.
Is that good? That's great. You can't hold your finger on it.
No. Nope. Looks good. We'll do a leak down, but you definitely have good compression. Decent, anyway.
Good. So here we go. We'll just set this right up on top. Okay, so we got the engine back together. We got compression on all 3 cylinders, and we're going to call it quits for the day. We have to put the rest of the valves together, but that's no big deal. The lifter's on, all that stuff. This is the new oil cap. We're going to have a retaining line from here going back to here, and looks great. Okay, so it's now time to figure out the top of the engine, and there you go. Okay, so it melts when you first put it together.
It doesn't really melt, but the oil washes it away.
Okay.
So you put
this is you call it assembly grease.
Yes, you put it on the bottom of the lifter, but we have oil there. You put it on the push rods, anything that would take a little bit of wear at startup without oil until you build oil pressure.
And then you're good. So this is like for the first time.
Yes.
Sounds like a plan.
A little bit, a little bit. You drop it down.
And we've got the...
and then you give it a spin to make sure you're seated.
Feels good down there?
Yep.
Let's see what that's... Oh yeah, it's like on a bearing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So if you were to look down in there...
Yep, we can see it sitting right...
in the center of the lifter.
Yep, right in the side. These are what? Made out of stainless or just steel?
Just steel, because it's oil bathed.
So it doesn't matter, yeah.
And this does the drain type thing. If you'll notice on the push rod, see that right there?
Yeah, right here?
They harden the ends, just the ends.
Just the ends.
They kept
So that keeps a little bit of spring to the whole thing.
Yes. So this will spring, but the ends will wear
harder, less, there'll be less.
Yeah.
So down it goes. There goes another one.
A lot of push rods are not. They have balls on the end that are welded to the end of it. We'll have to just give it a quick look with a flashlight and make sure they're all centered. Even though they feel good, you always want to double check.
Well, we should be able to open these right here and rotate it and see it move anyways.
Yeah.
Because we're going to take these off and check the compression before we drop it back in.
Well, we can do a leak down.
Yeah,
make sure everything's good. But once the motor's together,
you touch it.
We'll probably do that before we bolt the tranny on. You actually have metal to metal, and even though there's lubrication there from underneath, the lubrication doesn't really get to the rings.
Yeah.
The fuel is the lubrication for the rings, and even then,
So we put the caps back on the valves, these little pieces right here.
Yep.
And there's a little bit of this assembly grease on each one.
Yep.
And we've got the valves in here. They're all lined up right in the centers. So we're going to put the little bit more grease on, then we'll put the rack back on and get that in place.
So it's, we'll put it the right way. That'll help. That's always good.
So we'll get that set into place.
So I'm just gonna
loosely fit it.
Yeah, very loosely.
Make sure we don't drop anything out.
There's nothing that really could fall out right now.
Well, we could pop one of these guys and that would be
devastating.
Yeah. Well, it's not that big a deal. We just open the bottom up.
Yeah.
This one's not in at all.
Yeah.
We got to go up
well,
right here.
I want to crack these, but I want to put these down a little bit first.
This one's not in at all. These two are like out.
Yeah, we'll because I just want to back these off. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that we don't bend a push rod. Safe than sorry. I mean, you could just literally bolt this down because it was within spec before and not have a worry.
Well, we're gonna measure everything.
Yeah, I would rather take a little bit of extra time and back these off a little bit because we're gonna have to.
We're gonna have to set it anyways.
Yep. So you set this, get a couple threads in so you know it's not going to pull the rack off or anything like that. You back the nut off, you back the screws off, just one turn, that's all it takes. And then you start dropping them in the cups so that when you do torque the rack down, because it's going to push down to where the cam is.
Okay, these two are in over here.
Like those.
That one just popped out again.
Yeah, these two did too. Yeah. So you want to push. Popped out.
There we go. That one's down. This one's down.
And then you want to just bring this down. Snug.
This one's
snug. So it's going to hold all that, but it's going to hold it loose so we can torque these.
Get this to set right in.
Yep.
That's good. Those are in the right spots.
All these.
This one feels tight. This one doesn't feel right here.
We're not all the way down. This actual rocker is holding us.
Okay.
Because this spring should be open, so we can't bring these down. So when we torque it, we'll torque this one, then this one, then this one, right? But this spring here will not let us come down underneath on the pedestals.
So we need to lift these up a little bit more to get the torque right. This needs to have free.
Well, no, it'll push the spring down as we torque it down.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So we just got to get the torques back. And the book.
Watch your head.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're doing the rocker shaft hold down bolts. So these guys are 11 to 16 foot-pounds. And we got the wrench. And we got that set to what? About 20?
I set it to 7.
7?
So it's 11 to 16 foot-pounds.
So, good.
Foot-pounds.
So we'll go to 14, half of that.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to bring them all down just a little bit.
If you watch, it'll start. And as you tighten it down, you're always watching your push rods too. You know what I mean?
Make sure they're right in the cups.
Yeah, because if they fall out of the cup, see this one coming down?
Yep.
This spring over here?
Starting to take pressure.
Yep.
Good. Now we go to the outside.
2. And this one's going to take pressure. And we're going to set it to, what do you think, 15?
Halfway between 11 and 16. Yeah, 15 sounds good.
The
No,
head's steel.
that's steel, but what's this piece right here? Is that
That's
steel?
That's aluminum.
That's aluminum.
But we're worried about the thread.
Yeah.
That's why we go less on aluminum.
Okay. Click.
Oh.
And
That's it for that.
we did the center first, so
Yep.
they're all good.
When you double check it, it'll add a percentage of a foot-pound, a mild percentage. But like when the torque is very specific, not a hold down, you only torque it once, one and done.
That's good. So now we're going to adjust these guys.
Oh yeah.
So we need to take these out so we can turn the thing. So
Yep.
take the glow plugs out, and then we'll be able to rotate the shaft to take the pressure off. Just one more over here.
Yeah, we're done with this.
We just got to find a feeler gauge.
Yep, have those.
And the spec.
System.
Yeah.
A timing light works on the pulse. The line will flex and it'll flash.
So this is TDC here.
Yep.
And the 3 gives us what?
Before top dead center.
Before top dead
clockwise.
center. Because it's clockwise, yeah.
Yep.
And that's the 3 mark right here. Top dead center's right here.
Yep.
And then this is the mark right down here. You can see the little piece. So we're gonna
I've never put a timing light on a
diesel?
on a conventional diesel. Usually it's electronic diesel. So there's our exhaust. Right?
There's
So summing up. This is overlap.
Yep,
right?
you're a little bit past TDC right there.
But if I were to go back, right? If I were to come back this way, right?
Yep.
Now see the exhaust valve? Watch
Yep.
these two rocker arms.
Right here.
Yep.
And this one's the exhaust right here. So we're open on exhaust right now.
Yep. But we're coming up to TDC. Watch the rockers. We're
Okay.
at TDC. See, that'll instantly open. That's overlap.
Okay.
That's 180 out from top dead center.
Yep.
So we'll come around again.
Let me stop at the next one.
And the
We
intake.
just passed one there, so we'll come
Yep.
back around to number 2.
Intake's coming up. We're up. Right? We're at
We're on number 2 or 3?
waiting for this. Come up to TDC. There's that.
We're on exhaust on number 2 right now.
Yep. This right here
Yeah.
should be TDC. So we can adjust this valve.
Okay. So we're at top dead center for number 1. We've got the mark right here. It's the one right before the 3, right after the 3, which is just prior to hitting top dead center. Both of the valves are closed. Both springs are up, and this is just about to start the compression stroke. So the cylinder is all the way full of a piston. The piston's up at the top. It's about to go down, and there you have it.
The valve clearance is the same.
Yep. So we're going to set the exhaust, which is hotter than intake, to a little bit larger, 2 thousandths more. So we've got a 10 thousandths on the intake right now.
Yep.
And we're adjusting this, and we're at 10 thousandths, and we're going to tighten this down a little bit, adjust it, and then tighten the nut.
Yep. And it usually takes a couple times. Depend. If you have a feel that's tight, you set your valves tight. Sometimes you set them loose. And right now I am, it's hard to tell with the grease, right? But that goes in. You can go no-go gauge it with a 10 and 11. So we'll tighten that.
Okay.
So
Out comes the 10.
I don't have an 11. And it's very tight. That's on the tight side, which is fine. A little too tight for my taste.
I'm watching the position of the
Screw.
end of that. Yeah. I'd say right about there. It's lined up just like this.
So when I'm tightening this, I'm putting a little bit of force the other way on the screw. Go ahead. Is it too tight?
Goes in and out. Let's try the other
Or does
one.
it have a drag though?
It is a little bit, not much.
So
Let's see if the 11 goes in. No. 11 does not go in. 11 is just tight right there.
We are within 1,000th.
I would say you're right. We're with 1,000, so that's good. So now we're going to set the exhaust valve to 12.
Yep. And I have a 13 on here, so we're going to set that in there, like that. Okay.
Just turn this down.
Yep, right there. And then we'll
Open this nut up a little bit.
So we're just going to put our screwdriver in.
I lost it. Came out. It moved a lot.
Yep.
That's too tight. That's probably right about there. So it's still some drag, but I would, if we do this, the nut right there should be fine. Nope, that's got a lot of drag.
Let me see.
It's very precise.
Yeah.
It's almost like you'd like a finer thread up here.
Yeah. I don't think they do fine, you know.
Valve adjustment fine threads.
They, you know what's funny is this is a flat tappet, so you can play around with it all you want. Solid lifter, okay? So you can tighten it and loosen it and tighten it again, and everything's going to be accurate, okay? If it was a hydraulic lifter, as soon as you tighten it, that's it. That's all you can do. Because it pushes the lifter down. How's that feel?
Pretty good. Let's switch it to 13.
Yep.
We'll try it on 13.
13.
And let's see, we got 13. Nope, that's not going in.
0 for 2.
Right at 12. Okay, so I'm going to bring the cylinder here around to top dead center on number 2.
So your exhaust is coming up.
Yep, exhaust is coming up, and we should be close to a mark right here.
Not yet, because you're on overlap.
Now,
so that's the mark. You got to go 180.
180 past that.
Yep. Keep going.
And the mark should come back in.
Yep. You got to keep going. Keep going. Yep.
Haven't quite got there yet on number 2.
Yeah, it's right up next to that hole, coming around.
Right there.
Yep.
Should be close to that point. A little bit off, but not much. Watch out.
Sorry,
You got it? That's okay. Right there.
Okay.
That is right on top dead center. So now we're going to adjust the valves on number 2. And let's see.
Well, here's. Oh, hold that for a second.
We need the other tools.
Yep, the fuel gauges are there.
10. So 10. We got that. Let's see. It's still counting away. Yeah, we got.
Yeah. Might have been a little blurry on the turn of the crank because.
It's okay. We're doing good. It's on autofocus, close in, so it'll be fine.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to set the feeler gauge up for number 10. It's 15. 7, 8, 9, 12. That's the last one I get to.
Yeah, that one's pretty much specifically for.
There's a lot of space here, so we're going to bring this down. Okay, right about.
You come around out of the light.
Oh, you're good. Right about. Let's see. Tricky little suckers. I'm guessing. Yeah. Let's try it right there. Get the wrench in here. Try not to. Let's see. And
same drag as before.
Seems loose, so I'm going to switch it. Put the
other one in.
Put these two guys in and see if we get 11.
Nope.
How's that?
You don't force it. You just, you know.
Doesn't go in, so I'd say that one's good.
Yeah. So take your wrench and make sure that the nut is locked, but don't put a lot of force in it. You just, you know, give it a little bit. Yep. That's it. Shouldn't. If the nut turns, you just got to double check it. That's all.
So this guy, we got to put this one at 12.
Yeah, double check that one because the nut turned. Still nice and tight, same feel.
Same sort of feel. We'll put the other two in here.
So when you go back,
I can get these two in. That did turn.
Okay.
So it's not as perfect, but it's not bad.
No, it's fine. A half a thousandth is not going to matter.
Okay, so this guy here.
Yep.
We need 12 thousandths.
Yep. That should have been a hand model.
What's that?
It should have been a hand model. My
manicure.
My daughter bought me gloves the other day. Those impact gloves. She's like, you never wear gloves, your hands are all beat up. You gotta...
Oh, I see. So by holding the screwdriver, I prevent it from moving.
Yes. You give it a little twist towards the nut so that, you know what I mean?
It moves with it a little bit, but not much.
Yeah, it'll hold it in position because you could overcome the force.
That's not going in. That's perfect. 13, so we got that one set right.
Yep.
All right.
And I would just put the wrench on it. You know, very little force on the wrench. You know, just to make sure that's snug. Because they don't, these aren't lock nuts and they're not double nutted. So yeah, perfect.
Good enough.
Yep.
Now why don't we put another nut on top of this? There's not a lot of room, but it looks like you could.
You could. Oh, sorry. You could put another nut on top of it, but I mean, I wouldn't rethink Mitsubishi's. It's never come off before.
Then it's good enough.
You know.
And there isn't like a wire hole or anything for a lock wire or anything on it, so
no,
this is good enough.
That's number 1 cylinder. These are your timing marks. So that's 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
That's all you have to remember. And we do a couple. You know, you don't have to do it. You're just looking in here to make sure that everything's responding, no broken springs.
And we're getting air pressure coming out of these now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Come on, coming up. There it is. Coming up. It's another way to tell. Like if you were to spin this motor over, right? Not even looking at the rockers.
You can tell right there when you're at the top.
So as soon as that comes up on compression stroke, see right here, I'm 180 out. So I'm starting my, this is closing. I've got fuel in there. I'm starting my compression stroke. Wait a minute. Am I?
Nope.
No, I'm on overlap.
Now they're close.
Yep.
Still sucking down right now.
Yep.
Still pulling down. You can feel it pulling down. This cylinder's going down, and now it's doing the exhaust. So the exhaust valve's open.
Overlap.
Where it overlap.
When this comes up.
When that comes up, right as they match, now it's pushed up. So now it's all the way up at the top. I can feel the pressure on my finger here, right at the top of the glow plug.
If you hold the finger on that, the resistance you get.
It's pulling down now.
Yep.
Bring it around again, and it'll catch it. There's our exhaust.
Overlap.
Overlap.
Comes up, and this is the compression stroke. So they're closed. Number 1.
And as that comes up, that pressure's building on my finger right here.
Yep, it's only, and that's it. That's TDC right there. After this, it's gonna drop.
Yep, and it did.
So you're gonna come up.
We're gonna watch the timing mark right there.
So they kind of thought it through and did references, but you're on TDC number 3 cylinder right now.
Perfect. Okay.
So, 2 ways to tighten an oil pan. Because it's tin and it flexes, you can either do it like a cylinder head, you can do it from the center out, you know, crisscross, or you can start at one point and work your way all the way around.
Okay.
Those are the 2 ways. That, you know.
Because it's going to flex.
Yes, because it's tin, it's not a solid piece. It will still fall straight, but you have to give the material some place to flex out to. That's why going around, you're just pushing it out, and then eventually you come back to 0.
Okay, so let's tighten it up. Got the wrench. On it goes.
And that would be a...
So one...
Do you feel it click?
Yeah.
The second time I've used that wrench.
Thought you got it all. Thought you used it all the time.
Not this one. I'd have to take foot-pounds and split it down.
Okay, so we put the fuel lines back on. Got to be real careful because there's little bits of paint chips when these all came off. So those all had to be very carefully inspected and made sure they were correct. And each one of these has to loop through. Don't bend them. They've all got to be the exact same positions and lengths. And they're all good to go. And right now we're putting the thermostat back in, put a gasket back in it, grease the gasket a little bit. And so if you grease the gasket, you can reuse it, but...
Here's the Westerbeke sitting in the cockpit on the boat. And it's actually quite comfortable in here today. It's probably about 70 degrees in this cold northeast. It's all under shrink wrap. You can see the shrink wrap up there. So, very comfortable to work on the boat today.